welcome back to my channel. My name is Giovana and I'm an incoming medical student, and in today's video I'm going to share with you about how I got into medical school. First off, I just want to say that there is no right way or a perfect foolproof method of getting into med school. Personally, I just did my best throughout all of undergrad so that I knew that my application would be the best representation of me. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you my journey that led me into getting into med school, but obviously that journey is different for everyone. When I first started college, I came in as a biology major. It was fun. I did like it. I'm not going to say I didn't. I did. But I did feel like there was something lacking in the major. I'm someone who really loves reading and writing. I love writing essays, as weird as that is. And so I wanted a little bit more of that in my classes. And so I started exploring and looking around at other majors that my college offers. And at Cornell, which is where I went to undergrad, I stumbled upon this one major called Biology and Society. And I was like, bingo, that's the one. Because the society aspect of it is looking into the sociological and historical aspects of the hard sciences while still allowing me to take all the hard sciences that I wanted to take anyway. And so I just really fell in love with that major, and that's what I applied to, and that's what I stuck with throughout all of undergrad. And guys, I loved that major so much. I can't say enough about it because I was able to take so many cool and fun courses, one of them being the history of medicine in China. That professor was amazing, and we just had such intense discussions. And one of the cool things that we did was to take a field trip to go do a Tai Chi class, so that was just really fun to do. Another class that I ended up liking that I didn't think I would as much, but I did, is we studied Charles Darwin and other historical figures that really made an impact to the sciences as we know them today. And early on during undergrad, and I'm talking about starting the first semester of freshman year, I would sit down at the beginning and end of each semester to work on and edit a master list of all of the classes I intended on taking throughout all of my undergrad years. So to make that master list, what I would do is I would sit down with a list of my major requirements, a list of my pre-med requirements, and a list of my graduation requirements, and make sure that my list was compiling all the classes I needed to be able to fulfill all of those requirements. And so for my pre-med requirements, what I considered to be required classes were, and I'm going to look here, is 1 year of Gen Chem and Lab, 1 year of Orgo and Lab, and then 1 semester of biochem. I took just 1 semester. I know some people take a whole year of that. A year of bio and lab, and then a year of physics and lab, a year of math, and a year of English. And I actually took some AP classes that I know fulfilled a few of these requirements, but I just made sure to retake all of those classes anyway because I wanted to be super sure that I wouldn't have any issues at all with getting those requirements in for med school. At the beginning and end of each semester, I would look at that list to make sure that I was taking all the courses that I had on there. And if a course wasn't offered anymore for any reason, to make sure to take another course that would appropriately substitute that course that I had on there originally. And my main goal with this was to make sure to not get to senior year and all of a sudden be like, oh gosh, I need to try to fit this one course into my schedule, and it's just something that you don't want to get to and have to try to panic and try to fit into your schedule last minute. One of the biggest benefits I had from making this master list and starting so early on was that I realized basically my second semester of freshman year that I could graduate a semester early. And I actually did end up doing that because of financial reasons. It's actually really, saves a lot of money to be able to graduate a whole semester early. So I'm really, really glad that I did that list so early on so that I could already plan ahead knowing that it was totally possible for me to graduate a semester early. And if I really pushed it, I could graduate a year early, but I wasn't going to do that. Keeping a master list like this was also good for me for 2 more big reasons. One of them being that it gave me the flexibility to be able to take a fun class just because, one of those classes that fit absolutely no requirements for my major, my graduation, or for pre-med recs, just something that I really, really wanted to take and thought it would be fun. The second thing is that it gave me the flexibility to be able to drop a class if for any reason I wanted to just drop it. Maybe I just really hated the class, or because I just did terribly initially and thought maybe that was too much. And if you want to know exactly what I'm talking about, is that first semester of freshman year, I was starting college, and I think I didn't realize how overwhelming it would be to start getting used to studying in such a different way. And I think I piled on too many classes. And by me saying piled on, I'm talking about the standard 15 credits was still too much for me. And I just didn't realize that. And so I was taking one of the intro bio courses, and I had studied really hard for my first exam. And then, the next day after the exam, I walked into class, and it's like 400 people in this class. And I'm looking at the board, and there's, the curve that the professor is showing, because we're graded on a curve. I hate those. And I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, that poor soul, that person got like the lowest grade in the class. It was like, I honestly can't even remember, like a 40% or something, or a 30%. I'm like, oh, I felt so bad for them. And then I got my grade back and realized I was that person. And I didn't really panic at first, but I was like, okay, I have to go talk to the professor, see what's going on. I studied, I thought I knew this material. How could this be possible? And so I went, talked to the professor, and what I decided to do was let me drop the class. And I was gonna take it the following fall, so sophomore fall, and so that I could take it with that professor again. And we came up with a plan for me to go and attend his office hours every single week, sometimes twice a week, to review the material and to really just sit down and nail that material. And guys, I got an A+ in that class the next semester, the next time I took it. So that is to say, you should be able to have the flexibility to drop a class, or, just to make sure that you can do whatever works for you, especially freshman year when you're trying to figure yourself out and you think, you're like a big shot and you could take everything and you won't be overwhelmed. There's a lot of transition that happens in that first year of college. It would have been so easy for me to get caught up in 20-hour workdays where I'd be studying nonstop. So it was really, really important for me to have extracurricular activities during the academic year. And for me, it was especially important that these extracurricular activities be made so that I could reconnect with my peers and so that I could connect with the larger community outside of just my little bubble that I was in college. I wanted to be able to connect with the people in the city of Ithaca. One of the things that I did was I initially joined in freshman fall, I joined Bridges to Community, which is an organization where I, for one semester, took a course on the culture and politics of Nicaragua. And then during spring break of that year, of freshman spring, I went to Nicaragua, to a rural area there, and we helped some community members on a community project that they had asked for our help for. So that was a really, really fun trip. And I actually met a lot of Nicaraguan friends there that I talked to through the years. And then another thing that I joined was Phi Delta Epsilon, Phi DE, which is a professional medical fraternity. And so they have pre-med chapters as well as medical school chapters. And that was really, really nice for me to just be able to connect with the pre-meds at Cornell. I mean, Cornell is huge, and so it's really nice to kind of have that community there. And that's where I met some of my best study buddies and a few of my good friends. So that's really, really good as well. And then the other thing is that I was president of this one organization where we wanted to really connect the residential members of our dorms, and we also wanted to do projects to improve our community well-being. And so some of the things we did was just, we'd host resident dinners, and then we were also working on a project to improve recycling and waste streams in our residential dorms. So that was all really, really fun. And I guess here I want to point out that extracurriculars in college shouldn't all be medically focused. And I don't think they can or should be, because you want to be able to show the admissions committees that you're more than just someone who's fascinated by medicine and that's all you have to you. If you want to join that a cappella group, join it. If you're into skiing and any other sport, join that sport. Don't make it seem like that's all you care about is medicine, because I know that you're more than that you have more than just those interests. And also, I think, to keep that in mind is something to keep in mind is that college shouldn't just be the next step to getting someplace else. You shouldn't just be in college thinking, okay, now how do I get into med school? How do I make my resume good for med school? Those are 4 years of your life. You should enjoy that time too. Now about research. I began looking for research positions at the end of my freshman year, but I know some people who applied for research positions all throughout undergrad, and that's totally fine. Any research experience is great. I found the perfect lab for me really early on in the process of looking for research positions, and so I really tried to stick with her. And she offered me an interview, and we talked, and I just fell in love with the lab. And so I started my research position in the beginning of sophomore year and continued all throughout college and beyond. Guys, I fell in love with this lab. I fell in love with research because of this lab. I worked with a PhD student the whole time. I love her. She's fantastic. I learned so much. So my work was on the topic of milk sharing, and that's in a field of maternal and child nutrition. I'm a huge breastfeeding advocate, supporting mamas in all their choices, and I just loved it. I mean, I can't say enough. I had a blast. One of the things that we did was I worked on a literature review, qualitative and quantitative data analysis. I also helped with conducting interviews, and so much more. And it was just the best experience I could have asked for all throughout undergrad. But that is also to say that research is not a requirement to get into med school. It's really highly looked upon by a lot of med schools, but I will say that if you absolutely hate research or the idea of pipetting or the idea of analyzing data, because that's one big thing that I learned is research is not just working in a wet lab. The work that I did was completely on a computer, talking to people, like very, sociological stuff. I did not walk into a wet lab and put on a lab coat. Like, research is not just that. There's so many different types of research. But if you don't want to do it and you absolutely hate the idea of it, then you don't have to do it. You don't have to do something that you hate. And on top of that, something that I've always thought about is PIs, principal investigators, they're super passionate about their work. This is their life's work. And so imagine how frustrating and sad it must be for them if you're over there working and they can see that you just hate what you're doing, but you just want the credits or you just want to get paid. That's not how to go about it. So of course that doesn't mean, do go out and explore different research options. And if you don't like it, move on to another lab. But if you just don't want to do research at all, you don't need to feel like you have to do it. I did a bunch of shadowing and clinical volunteering during my school breaks, meaning during the summer and winter breaks. My first major shadowing experience during college was actually the summer after my freshman year, where I shadowed a gastroenterologist in New York City while simultaneously working at the hospital's clinical trials office as a volunteer. And there I was doing just some data analysis and composition and so forth. But really what my days consisted of during that summer was 3 days a week of shadowing this gastroenterologist at either his outpatient clinics or at the hospital with inpatients. And then 2 days a week, I was working at the clinical trials office for 8 hours a day. And that was really, really a fun experience. And if you know anything about me, you know that I'm super obsessed with pregnancy, childbirth, all things baby. And so I've been feeling the field of obstetrics and gynecology for a long time. So why did I choose to shadow a gastroenterologist? Well, to me, I think that during your pre-med years, and I'm going to take this philosophy on with me through med school, that's the time to explore. Yes, I've loved obstetrics, everything about the field, but what if I explore dermatology and I really fall in love with that? Or radiology and I really fall in love with that? I have no way of knowing until I actually go out and explore those fields. And so I purposefully made the decision to want to shadow people outside those fields, especially since during high school I had shadowed a bunch of obstetricians and was like, this is amazing. And so I enjoyed all of those shadowing experiences. Do I want to become a gastroenterologist? No. But I did learn a ton about just medicine in general that is very valuable, and I will be carrying on with me through to medical school and beyond. And so another shadowing experience that I had that was also combined shadowing and volunteering was at my hometown in Brazil. And so I got a really different feel for medicine there, since it's just a whole other system. And there I was shadowing a group of general surgery residents. Guys, that was just so freaking cool. I got to sit in and watch a bunch of surgeries. I was there to see the residents doing pre and post-op procedures. I got to see and talk to a lot of patients and learn about their stories. So that was a really, really powerful experience as well. So if there's any takeaway to get from the way that I perceived shadowing and clinical volunteering to be, was to really just try to explore beyond what you think your interests are. You never know what's going to come of these shadowing experiences. So I only did shadowing and clinical volunteering during my academic breaks because I felt like I would be too overwhelmed to do that during the semester with classes along with my extracurriculars. And that is fine. You don't have to try to do everything all at once in college. Do what works for you. I finished all of my class and graduation requirements in 3.5 years instead of 4, so I did graduate early in December of 2018. And then during that spring after graduation, that's when I studied for the MCAT for 2 months, took the MCAT in March, and then while I was doing that, I was also simultaneously continuing my research from the lab that I was in college, throughout college. And I also did take a 2-week-long trip to London. Love that city. And I thought, why the heck not? It was right after MCAT. I could do my research from my computer, and so I did that. And then I also worked on my application for med school throughout the month of May and submitted that right before starting my gap year research position. And I'll be talking about my gap year in a future video, so stay tuned for that. All right, everyone, so this was my journey that led me to applying to med school. And like I said before, this is not me trying to tell you to join the same clubs I did and do the same activities I did, but to tailor your undergraduate experience and your gap year or years to your interests. Do stay alert towards making sure that you're meeting all of those pre-med, major, and graduation course requirements, and also make sure that you're putting the effort into exploring medicine through shadowing and clinical volunteering. Getting into med school is a ton of hard work, but the key is to really enjoy yourself throughout the process without being caught up about the next steps. Work hard and you will get it. I hope you find this video helpful, and let me know if you have any questions about my journey. Thank you to every single person who has subscribed so far, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate every single one of you, and I do a happy dance every time I see our community growing more and more. Bye, everyone.